How's it going, everybody? I'm in quite a few Facebook groups for laser engraving, and I do the laser engraved canvases, and I always get asked a couple of questions, what type of paint am I using, how do I do the canvases, what are the settings, and in today's video, hopefully I'm going to go over quite a few of those elements to give you a good detailed way of how to create these high quality canvases. So let's go ahead and jump into the canvas prep work.
Alright guys, for this part of the video I'm going to show you how I prep my canvases before I do any of the laser etching. Now before I prep these, what I typically do is I go ahead and I have a good image that I'm wanting to use, and once I figure out the image I'm going to use, I like to try to figure out what colors am I going to play with here, what colors is going to really make this image stand out. And then once I kind of get an idea of what I'm going to do with the coloration, that's when I kind of start looking at my prep work for the canvas. So the very first thing is this canvas is a 8x10, and I am going to be using as a base coat, it'll be a Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover Paint and Primer White Flat. I try to use this flat on the bottom. It does help a lot with smoothness, and it doesn't give off much reflection if it does burn through to that layer. And then from there, what I will end up doing is, for my image, I have chosen to go with a gold. The gold is what's gonna show through for the image itself. And then I will top coat it with a black, flat black. All these materials, the paint, you can get this at Home Depot. Canvas, you can get it at Walmart, you can get it at Hobby Lobby, any of the little craft stores around you. They're fairly cheap, pretty easy to get. They're always in stock. A lot of times the places do like a sale when you buy a large pack of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Now here's where it gets very important. You want to make sure that you are going to give it the smoothest paint surface possible. So what I like to do, and this is going to be probably a 2 coats of the white. I'll probably end up doing 3 coats of the gold, and then for my top coat of that black, I will finish it off probably just 1 nice even black coat. And you're going to see how I do this through the process. So to begin, the first thing I do is I try to hit all the edges. I would like for all my edges to get done, so that way there is not much overspray on the top of it. So it makes it for a smoother canvas when you finish. Second, after I hit all my edges, what I'm going to do is, and I probably stay 6 to 12 inches away to get a nice even coat. What I do is I go one way, and then I go in the opposite direction. And what this actually does is it makes sure that all the cracks and crevices of this canvas get filled in really nice, again, to give you that very smooth surface that you're looking for. And that is it, right? It's pretty much as simple as that. Now, when we get to the gold, we're going to be doing multiple coats. At this moment, we're going to let this go ahead and dry. Once it dries, I'll probably come back, do another white coat, and then from that point forward, once it's dry, with that second white coat, I'm going to do 3 gold coats. Second coat of this white has been applied, and it is dry. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump in with this metallic gold. Again, this is pretty much my color layer that is going to come through the black, and it's really going to make the image look really nice. Now for this one, I do the same thing as before. I do in 2 different ways. I go one way, and then I change up for the second across. I go the other way. That way I again am ensuring that I get a nice full coverage. And again, this will be about 2 to 3 coats. It really depends on how well and how thick you put it on. I like to go for very thin layers, so that way I know that there's not going to be anything sticking out. It's not going to be that rough of a surface. It's going to look very good. So here I go. I'm going to show you my first layer. And that's how I put on that gold coat, and I'm gonna let this dry, and once it's dry, I'll go ahead and show you the next coat. Alright guys, the first coat of this gold has dried. In the conditions I'm in, you know, it's probably about 57 degrees. I'm inside of my shop, so it really only takes about 15 minutes, maybe 20. So it's really not that time consuming for this. And now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do this second coat of gold. Now, I just wanna let you know that the sides are not that important at this time, because the photo that you're gonna be laser engraving on this, or laser etching, is gonna be on the top. And the sides will be fully covered with the black when I do the final top coat. But let me go ahead and just do that second coat of gold again and show you I do the same thing. It's a cross pattern. I start with one way, and again, this is about between 6 and 12 inches above the canvas, and then I do that second way. And again, the purpose for this is to give it a nice even coat. Alright guys, so the second coat of this metallic gold has sat for roughly 15 to 20 minutes, and now I'm going to do my final pass of the metallic gold. And again, this is going to go the same way I've done everything else. I'm going to do it cross-sectional. I'm going to go one way, and then I'm going to do it another way. And again, you want to stay about 6 to 12 inches away from your working project. That way it is a very evenly distributed spray, and it comes out as flat as possible. Now, you may run into an error where you accidentally get a little too close and it smudges, and that happens. But to avoid it, you want to give it the smallest particles of paint as possible. Here we go. And that's it. So I'm gonna give you a good idea of kind of something that I do. I always like to kind of get down and look at it on a level plane, so that way when the light hits it, I can see if there are any spots that were missed or dry. And if there are, what I'll do is I'll take the paint again, and I will just lightly spray it. This one right here, I just checked it and it looks great. There's no dry spots or anything like that. So I'll give this another 20 minutes or so. I might even give this one 30 minutes, just because this is the third layer of this paint, and I want to ensure that it dries very well before I do my top coat in black. What I'm going to also do is I'm going to show you real quick the very first 2-layer laser engraving that I did, and I'm planning to achieve the same thing. This is essentially what I did the very first go. Obviously it did not go perfectly as planned. My first and second attempt took me 3 tries to get this thing right where I wanted it. And this is another black and gold canvas that I did. This is one of the flat ones I picked up at Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 3 for like $1, and it was very good for using as a test piece to dial in my laser etching settings, to dial in how I prep the canvas. It's very inexpensive. I would suggest go pick up a couple of those, and if you want to give this a try, do it on those test ones. That way you're not taking a lot of time in the laser engraving, you're not taking a lot of time and material getting wasted. And once you dial in everything for that that smaller canvas, move on to the bigger ones. It's going to be the same exact process. It's going to be the same settings. Again, where it really matters is that you get enough coats on there for your actual color, so that way when the laser does go to etching, if you're off by a couple of percentage on power, you're not going to burn through all the way to the canvas layer. Giving it multi-layers for the color, it does give you a little bit of wiggle room, so that way if your laser power is a little bit off, it provides like a safety net. Now, for this final top coat, this is a very crucial part of this canvas work. You need to ensure that it is well covered, but you don't want to put on too thick of a coat. You don't want to do too much of it, because then it starts giving you problems in your laser engraver where it may not burn all the way through, or you know, you get some of this gold that shows through the black, and that is worst case scenario. You don't want that to happen. So when it comes to this black or this top coat, again, it's crucial that you do it very well and you don't put it on too thick. You need to have nice coverage so none of the gold shows through, but you also want to have a thin coat so that way it's easier for the laser to burn through it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this black coat. And again, this is where it is most crucial. This is where your edges of the canvas matter, because you want a nice finished product. This is where, you know, this is where everything comes into play. You don't want the show through of the gold. You want your edges real nice. You want it to be a nice finished product. I'm also going to do the same thing I was doing before, which is cross coating, but this time it's only going to be one coat, and I'm going to have to get at eye level with the canvas to see the shimmer of the light, so that way I ensure there's no dry spots. It's well covered and it's pretty easy to see. You'll see like a shimmer on everything, but if there is a dry spot, you'll see it by looking at it at eye level. It'll look untouched, and it may seem that it's painted well, but in the end result, if it's not coated well enough, the gold or whatever color you choose will shine through. So this is a crucial part. So let me go ahead and show you what I do with this part. Do a nice coverage on the edges. Make sure that you are getting absolute coverage. Now once your edges are good, you're going to do the same thing we've been doing. You're going to cross coat. Again, this is 6 to 12 inches. So right now it looks like it's almost done, but if I actually look down at eye level, I can see some spots kind of in this area that is not well covered. So this time I'm going to do the cross section. And again, nice, even, light coats. I'm going to look down again. I see a little bit on these edges. Hit them one more nice time, and I think it's good to go. Again, I get eye level with it and I look for the shimmer from the light, and to me that's a pretty well covered coat. So this one I'm gonna also let dry for probably 30 minutes. I might even let it dry for an hour just to make sure that everything is fully dried all the way through. Because if you remember, we did a first 2 coats of white for the base coat on the canvas, then we came on top with 3 coats of that metallic gold, and now we've got our final coat of the 1 layer of black. And what you don't want to happen is when you go to laser engraving on this, that a coat or a layer is not dried thoroughly, because what is likely to happen is if it's not properly dried and your laser goes to engrave it, you're not going to get the color that you're looking for. The color is going to end up getting burnt. So there's a lot of room for error on this prep work. So if you don't do it sufficient, it's going to show in your end result. And again, everything I've shown you up to this point, this is how I've done everything. And again, you know, that's a pretty good quality. I mean, the gold comes through, the black is nice, everything is nice and flat. So again, your prep work, this very beginning is very crucial. Now when it gets into the laser engraving, it's crucial as well. But again, if you don't start off right, it's gonna end up wrong. So as I've said, get eye level with it, make sure you've got some light on it, and look for those dry spots. Make sure that those dry spots aren't there. Make sure you get well coverage. And even if you do get a dry spot after it's, after you think you're done and you go for a final look, it's okay to pick up the can and give it a couple of little sprays. And what I mean by a couple little sprays is keep it even further away. Instead of your 6 to 12 inches, get a little further away, so that way the small particles disperse even more evenly. So like I would do something like that, right? Just a couple little sprays a little further away to make sure that you're getting the coverage you want. All right, guys, so I'm gonna give this, like I said, 30 minutes, probably an hour. I want to make sure that everything comes out correct.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the setting up the Engraving software for this laser engraving canvas. So this is the home screen of the Engraving software. I will start with the 3-axis because I'm not doing 4-axis. 4-axis is when you're doing a rotary tool. So 3-axis is what I'm going to select. My workspace is 400 millimeters by 400 millimeters, and I like to position it centered. Now, I will select the image that I'm going to be laser engraving. Because I already know that this is an 8x10 canvas, I already have the conversion from millimeters to inches for what I'm trying to do. So for this one, the width will be 203. I'm going to unlock it so that way I can get the height correct as well. So the height for this is 10 inches, which converts to 254 millimeters. But because I want this image to be inside of the canvas without being too tight to the edges, instead of doing 254 millimeters, I'm going to go ahead and do like a 230 millimeters. That way I know that there's going to be a nice decent border around the canvas that goes around the image. From here, because we're going to be doing this laser engraving on a black top coat canvas, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn it to invert. That way, everything that I want to show gold, it's going to only laser engrave the dark areas in which you see. Those areas will become gold, and it'll give us a really nice finished image. I'm going to go ahead from here and we're going to go into the process part. So it's already selected. So now from here I just click create toolpath. I like to do dot field engraving just because you're going to get the highest quality of engraving this way. It's a little longer, but it definitely brings out a better quality picture in the end. So for this, the fill interval is something that I change next. Now, I can go all the way down to 0.05 millimeters. I really change this depending on the size of the piece that I'm going to be working with. With this particular 8x10 canvas, I find that, let's say 0.1 typically works pretty well. And I'm also going to increase this power to 45%. And now I'm going to go ahead and generate the G code. This G code is what basically drives the laser engraver and tells it what to do, and it also tells me how long it's going to take. So it tells me that it's going to take roughly 5.5 hours. Down here on the right you can see 5 hours and 38 minutes. Usually before I do anything, I like to zoom in and see the separation between the dots to see if I'm going to get a really good image. And if I zoom out just good enough, I can see how good of a quality this image is going to be. Which I'm happy with this 0.1, but let me see if I can do this a little bit faster, get it more to around the 4.5 hour mark. So I've got it at 0.13 millimeter fill interval, and it's telling me 3 hours and 44 minutes. And again, I'm going to zoom in just to see how well I think it's going to come out. And I think that this is a fair time to detail working time. So I'm good with it. And now I'm going to export it to my flash drive. Just going to name it Lion, just for the ease of everything. And it's been saved to my flash drive. Now we'll move on to the machine side. Alright, so the laser engraving is done. As you can see, there is some residue on there from the laser engraving burning that black paint. You can see a little bit of that gold come through, but to get this piece finished, I take a paper towel, I dampen it, and all I do is I wipe all of that residue off. But it's that easy. You just wipe it off until nothing else is coming off. And I'm still getting some, so I'm gonna keep wiping until it's all the way off. You can see that the detail is pretty good. And then once I've got it all the way wiped off, just take a dry one and just give it another wipe. Still getting a little bit, it's hard to see on the camera, but I'm still getting a little bit of this residue. It's not much, but I just want to give it a nice little dry wipe, help this thing dry out. That way the image can come through exactly. And that's it. And that's how I do my laser engraving on these canvases. The detail is very good, all the way down to the strands of the hair, around his chin, the tongue. Very good detail. Exactly what I was looking for. Alright, so now that we went through all the steps and the laser engraving and the final product, I just want to talk a little bit about these canvases and kind of what I went through to get where I am today, making these high quality canvases. So when I first started, it wasn't my first time and it worked perfect, right? It wasn't the second and it wasn't the third either. I ended up going through probably 5 canvases before I got something that was where I wanted it to be. And I'm going to tell you a couple things that I learned from my own personal mistakes that will hopefully allow you to get there a lot quicker than it did for me. So one of the biggest things is, when you first try this, don't go from one image to the next to the next. You'll end up just chasing around your settings, and it's not going to work. So that's something I learned the hard way, and I'll tell you what happened for me. So the first two canvases, I did the same exact image, and it just did not come out the way I wanted it to. So on my third canvas, I ended up changing the image, which I should have never done, and again, didn't come out correctly, right? Fourth one, again, didn't come out correctly. On my fifth go, I used that second image for the third time, and I got it exactly where I wanted it to be. Now, I probably would have gotten better results if I would have stuck with the first image and just worked through the settings to get it dialed in, but I didn't. So one of the biggest things you should do is just don't change your images. Use the same image until you get it right. Sometimes it may take 2, 3, 4 times, 5 times, whatever it takes, but don't change your image because your settings are gonna vary on the image you use. Some become lighter, some become darker images, right? So when you got a darker image, you can go with a lower power. When you've got a lighter image, you have to increase that power so that way it burns through to the paint layer. And that has a lot to do with your image prep. So you can either take an image and go right after it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you need to change the image through contrast, things like that, to get that image quality where it needs to be for the laser engraving. So like, that's number one, is just don't change your image, use the same image, get your settings dialed in. Once you get your settings dialed in, you'll pretty much be in the ballpark for every single canvas. Most of them will work with the same settings. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you have to change things a little bit. But if you get your settings dialed in using one image, every single time you do these canvases, you'll be in the ballpark. It won't be much. There won't be much to change to get it exactly how you want it. Now, the second thing, this is just as important as not changing your image, or maybe even more important. Keep a log. Keep a log of what you're doing, right and wrong. So when you do your first canvas, write down your settings. When it's done and you look at it, if it's off and not exactly how you wanted it to look, at least you have the settings saved to where you can go back and say, okay, this is what I need to do a little different. This is what I need to do a little different. And I'll tell you what happens 9 times out of 10 when you pull that canvas off. The color doesn't come through, right? When the color doesn't come through on my canvases, how I was able to figure out how to get my colors to come through better, faster. The very first time that the image did not come through well, all I did was I scraped with a file or a knife, or anything that you can scrape something with. You scrape until you can see that colored paint underneath. And when you scrape it and that color comes through, you know that you just need a little more power. Now, it doesn't mean go overboard with your power, because you can easily go straight through the canvas, or you'll go through your color and go straight to the white. So scrape it and you'll figure out how much more power do you need. Was it just a little bit because you scraped a little bit and now you see the color, or did you have to scrape a lot to get to the color, and that tells you that you needed a good bit more power. So keeping a log is pretty crucial, and that's not just for these canvases either. That's for all your engravings, right? All material reacts differently. So if it's slate, keep a log. If you want it to be darker, the power needs to be more. If it came out too dark and it needs to be a little lighter, that means there's a little less power needed. So keep a log with all of your laser work, and eventually it'll become secondhand nature for you, and you'll just kind of understand what you need to do. And thirdly, keeping that log on all your materials and all your works that you do, not only will it create a faster work time, because you know exactly your settings to get the outcome you're looking for, you're going to save a lot more material. You're going to stop wasting material doing test runs, and you'll just automatically know exactly what you need to do for that type of material. So keeping a log is probably one of the most beneficial things that I've done to get all of my artwork, really good. It helps a lot. It helps a lot to not waste all the material, to have your settings dialed in, to know exactly what you need to do for that material. You're going to create faster productivity. You're going to lower your waste costs. And if you're selling these products, you're going to increase your sales in general because the quality is going to be much better. And that's what people are after, is quality. So keep a log. Note down everything you do for every type of material. That has been a #1 enhancement from my work personally. That log is everything. I'm not going to say I'm at a point where I don't need my log anymore, but for the majority of the things I do, I already have a good understanding of the material and what the material, what the laser settings need to be for that material. Most times I can just throw it in, and let it go. I don't have to look at my log anymore. But there are cases where I still do. The wood, right? Wood reacts differently. Canvases, the paint colors react differently. Slate, it's pretty much the same. There's, some people do these sanded with painted slates. Personally, I don't like that. I bought the slate for the natural look of the slate, not to sand it down smooth and paint on top of it. To me, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You bought slate, use the natural beauty that it has. And this is not to say that, don't do it. I'm just saying this is my personal opinion on doing that with slate. Slate's beautiful as is. Keep it natural. Let that beauty shine through. These canvases, they're not easy, but they're not also that hard either. If I was to put it in a certain class, I would say that the canvases are probably a little bit more intermediate to do. You're engraving on wood, the wood is one color, it's just wood, you're just burning on top of it. Slate, right? Slate is just one color, you're burning on top of it. When it comes to these canvases, you're doing colors. And the colors sometimes reacts differently to your laser, like how it gets burned. So I wouldn't say that these are easy, I wouldn't say they're hard, I would say they're intermediate. Like, they're a little more advanced than your slate and your wood burning. So it takes a little more time to get these things dialed in. And hopefully, I hope that everything that I've done here today in this video, I hope that it really helps you advance your abilities with your laser engraving. I hope that, you can create these high quality art images just as I do. I appreciate your time watching this video. I hope that it has helped you in some way. I hope it has helped you understand the process that I go through to make these canvases. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. I'm gonna try to create some more videos here and there. It's kind of not a priority at the moment, but I probably will create more videos. So if you do enjoy, this laser engraving work, and as I continue to advance my own skill sets in this area, I'll try to create some videos on how to do these things, how to do these crafts. And hopefully you'll follow along, and I'll probably create a couple more videos of just doing these canvases, right? I enjoy them, they're fun. You get to use some color with it. Color is a big thing for any craft. The majority of people would prefer to buy something with color than black and white or no color. That color and the contrast that they have, it helps sell things. So again, I hope that this video helped. I hope that, something was gained from this video. And I hope you get out there and start making some really nice canvases, and I look forward to seeing what y'all make. If you have any questions on anything you've seen in the video, or any questions that you didn't see in the video, leave it in the comments. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. I also create these images, and most of them do get put onto my Etsy shop. So if you ever want to use any of these images you see, or any of the images that I showcase in some of the Facebook groups, I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop in the description below, and you can click it. Be sure to follow it. That way when new images are added, you can get an alert. I appreciate it. Alright, so that concludes this video. Look forward to seeing what all y'all make, and keep on crafting.